Q Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @CuandReview. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION@CUENDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Herald Scotland on Wednesday the 6th of November 2024. From the news section. Diamond jewellery and watch firm in major Scottish investment. This article was written by Ian McConnell and it's being read by me, Corey. A family-owned national jeweller has described an investment in one of its Scottish stores as its largest investment of this year. Diamond jewellery and watch retailer Beaver Brooks said, on the back of the £2 million investment, its store at Braehead Shopping Centre near Glasgow has increased 2.5 times in size. It added, marking its 25th year in Renfrew, Glasgow, Beaver Brooks has invested an impressive £2 million in the newly refurbished store. Set across 5,008 square feet, upscaled from 1,963 square feet, Beaver Brooks Braehead is a destination for Swiss watches and features dedicated shop-in-shop spaces for Omega, Breitling and Tag Heuer, that's Heuer, I don't know if I pronounced that right, as well as Tudor, which is a new addition to the store. The company noted Beaver Brooks Braehead has also introduced luxury watch brand Jacob & Co., known for its highly sought-after timepieces which feature intricate statement-making designs, making it the only stockist in Scotland and the 10th in the UK. It added, the expansion into the adjoining unit has provided a larger and elevated dedicated area for Beaver Brooks Diamond and Weddings, where a team of experts will assist with special engagements and wedding ring purchases. Beaver Brooks declared that, with its rich heritage offering 105 years of diamond expertise, it had unveiled a wide selection of hand-selected Beaver Brooks diamonds, in addition to collections from Maple Leaf Diamonds and new edition Royal Astur Diamonds, which is celebrating its 170th anniversary this year. It added, the store also showcases fine jewellery and watches from Gucci, as well as other brands Rado, Raymond Weil and Tissot. Luxury fine jewellery from Marco Bigego has also been introduced, making Beaver Brooks Braehead the brand's first stockist. Beaver Brooks has 89 stores across the UK. Managing Director Anne Blackburn said, this investment into retail in Scotland and the future of Beaver Brooks is very exciting for us, particularly as this is our largest investment of the year. The Braehead store, which has increased 2.5 times in size, marks our 5th refit of the year, with a final one planned before Christmas. We are continually investing where there's opportunity and driving value for the business to safeguard the future of the company. We are pleased to continue to position our Braehead store as a destination for diamonds and watches, particularly as it becomes Scotland's first and only Jacob & Co. stockist, alongside dedicated shop-in-shop areas for Omega, Breitling, Tag Heuer and Tudor watches. She added, we're confident the refurbished store will be popular with customers, both new and returning, and we look forward to continuing to provide exceptional levels of customer service while showcasing our expertise and passion for watches, fine jewellery and diamonds. Janine McQueer, store manager at Beaverbrook's Braehead, said, "We're proud to have been part of shoppers' special occasions for the past 25 years, and our latest refurbishment marks the next part of our journey. We can't wait to share more celebrations with customers and cement our position as Glasgow's destination for watches and diamonds." Ashley Bisland, Centre Director at Braehead Shopping Centre, said, "We're excited to see Beaverbrook's officially open its doors to introduce its new look to our shoppers. It's a great achievement and milestone for the brand, and we're confident visitors will love the new store." That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Ian McConnell, and it was read by me, Corey. The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 6th of November 2024. From the news section. Farmley deploys AI technology to meet rising demand for eggs. This article was written by Christy Dorsey, and it's being read by me, Corey. Scotland's second biggest egg producer is looking to further boost output with a £2.4 million investment in AI technology. New computer vision grading equipment will come into use at Aberdeenshire-based Farmley from the start of next year, which will nearly double production from 5,000 to 900 cases per hour. Managing Director Ian Chapman, whose grandparents started rearing poultry in 1946, said the investment comes as retail sales of eggs have grown by more than 20% during the last 2 decades. Getting the new grader installed in January will be a great way to start the new year, Mr. Chapman said. There is a real buzz about eating eggs, with lots of posts on social media platforms such as Instagram, with celebrities talking about how they are a healthy way of getting protein into the diet. There are definitely more young people eating eggs now than there have been for a very long time. The investment will create 10 new jobs at Farmley, which began marketing its own eggs in the 1970s. The business supplies Aldi, Lidl, Morrisons and Spar with its own eggs and a growing stable of contract producers' eggs from the family's 2,500-acre Cockmere farm near Stricken. The AI grading system uses advanced algorithms and deep learning techniques to analyse high-resolution images of eggs for cracks as well as variations in colour, texture and shape. It is being supplied by the Sanovo Technology Group factory in Holland. Latest egg industry data from Kantar World Panel shows that while all population sectors are eating more eggs, growth is acknowledged as particularly strong amongst the 18 to 44 age group. Overall, consumption has risen from 1.6 eggs per person per week to 2.1 eggs per person per week, equating to 110 eggs per person. Mr. Chapman said shortages of eggs at supermarkets during the pandemic and the bird flu outbreak have prompted many retailers to offer 5-year rolling contracts to producers. In many ways, those empty supermarket shelves were a blessing, he said. No retailer wants to see a repeat of the egg shortages, and that, together with the increased consumption figures, has given them the confidence to show more long-term support. He added, "This really is a golden age for egg production." Numbers inquiring about coming on board as contract producers are at a high, with eggs being seen by many as a new venture or wonderful way of enabling a younger generation to come home to a family farm. Amazing when you think it's a sector that people might not have even considered just a few years ago. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Christy Dorsey, and it was read by me, Corey.
For the Herald, Wednesday the 6th of November 2024. Sports section. Celtic have discovered we can compete in Champions League. Rodgers. This article is by PA and is read by Ross. Brendan Rodgers feels Celtic have discovered they can compete in the Champions League as he savoured his best night with the Hoops. Celtic came from behind to beat RB Leipzig 3-1 thanks to the outstanding Nicholas Kuhn's double and well-deserved goal from Rio Hate. The Scottish champions have now bounced back from their 7-1 thrashing against Borussia Dortmund by holding Atalanta in Italy and sweeping to victory against a side sitting second in the Bundesliga. Rodgers said, "It gives a real nice confidence for the team. I think we've discovered in the last two games that we can be really competitive. If you'd said after the Dortmund game that we would have got 4 points from Atlanta and Red Bull Leipzig, probably not too many people would have said we would have done that. But I think we've discovered that we can play at this level, so it's a great next step. To have 7 points after 4 games, especially with the level of performance that we've played, gives us great encouragement. It means in the next 4 games we can have a real confidence to go and make the playoff stage, but it's still such a long way to go." Rodgers agreed it was his best night with Celtic in Europe, pointing out that Leipzig have only conceded 5 goals in 9 Bundesliga matches. In terms of the level of opponent, I would say that actually it wasn't just the result, but the performance, he said. "We played the game with great charisma and confidence, and showed the courage in our pressing. We've had some really good results, but that definitely would be the best one. Celtic have now played their 3 hardest games in the league phase on paper and sit above the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, AC Milan and Paris Saint-Germain after winning 3 consecutive home games in the Champions League for the first time since 2007. When asked if they could even target a potential top 8 place, Rodgers said, "No, we have to stay humble in our world. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves. We played so well. We're in a really good place and now just focus on our next game against Kilmarnock. Obviously, when Club Brugge comes, we'll look to keep adding to our points and see where it takes us at the end of January." Kuhn looked unplayable at times, scored a wonderful equaliser as he curled in off the post from 20 yards, but Rodgers was keen to stress the German winger can still improve. "He's still young, so he has more to go," Rodgers said. "I thought his pressing could have been better. That was the thing I said to him. He's obviously got a goal contribution efficiency, but he's just learning and developing all the time. We've seen his talent. Bringing him to here was about making more goal contributions, being more robust and a sustainable player. But I thought he was really exciting when he had the ball, and obviously the 2 goals were great for him, having worked at Red Bull Leipzig before as a young player." And that article was by PA and read by Ross. For the Herald, Wednesday the 6th of November 2024, Sports section. German media reacts to Kuhn's stunning Celtic Champions League display. This article is by Lana McKay and is read by Ross. A German media outlet has labelled Nicholas Kuhn a German no-name professional after the winger stunned his former club RB Leipzig with an outstanding Champions League display last night. Celtic came from behind to secure a thrilling 3-1 home win on match day 4, with Kuhn begging a quick-fire brace at the end of the first half and earning a Player of the Match award for his efforts. The 24-year-old spent part of his youth career at Leipzig's academy before spells at Ajax and Bayern Munich. Brendan Rodgers spent $3 million to bring the German-born winger to Celtic from Rapid Vienna in January 2024 on a 5.5-year deal. Following last night's inspired performance against his former side, Kuhn has sent shockwaves through his homeland. German sports outlet Bild shared the headline, "German no-name professional embarrasses Leipzig." Last night's statement victory was Celtic's second of their Champions League campaign following a 5-1 win over Slovan Bratislava on match day 1. The Hoops also earned an important point against Atlanta after a 0-0 draw in Bergamo in the wake of a tough 7-1 away defeat to Dortmund. And that article was by Lana McKay and read by Ross. For the Herald, Wednesday the 6th of November 2024. Sports section. Rangers and Hearts fans given huge Glasgow travel boost. This article is by Ewan Patton and is read by Ross. Glasgow's subway will remain open for fans of Rangers and Heart of Midlothian following Sunday evening's Scottish Premier fixture at Ibrox. The teams will meet in Govan on Sunday evening. The game is scheduled to kick off at 5 p.m. in Glasgow. Of course, the subway usually operates a more condensed service on Sunday, open between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6:12 p.m, as opposed to the Monday to Saturday service of 6:30 a.m. to 10:40 p.m. This had the potential to cause travel chaos for supporters post-match, with the game due to finish around 7 p.m. that evening. However, an update has now confirmed that following discussions between Rangers and the underground operator, SPT, the subway will remain open on Sunday, November the 10th until 8 p.m. The club's SLO wrote on X, following positive dialogue between the club and SPT, we're pleased to inform supporters that the subway opening times will be extended on Sunday, 10th of November, after our fixture against Hearts. Last trains will depart Ibrox around 10 p.m. And that article was by Ewan Patton and read by Ross.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday, the 6th of November 2024, from the Voices section. The kids will be all right without an inheritance, won't they? This article is by Alison Rowett. From employers and home buyers to pensioners and the parents of private school pupils, the queue of those complaining about Rachel Reeves' budget grows longer by the day. Just when things can't get any stickier for the Chancellor, along comes Ruth Davidson, waving a steak bake. The former leader of the Scottish Conservatives has compared imposing inheritance tax on farms to the pasty tax, an idea from the mind of Tory Chancellor George Osborne, no less, so obviously wicked it was reversed soon after. The NFU says it has never seen farmers as angry as they are over the inheritance tax move. Many fear they won't be able to hand farms to their sons and daughters without landing them with a huge tax bill. Farms will go out of business, they warn. Food supplies will suffer. The government says only a minority of the wealthiest landowners will be hit. Wiser heads might have warned Reeves to steer clear of anything that interferes with people's desire to do what they want with their money once they reach a certain point in life. There's a lot of such meddling about. Anyone fortunate enough to have money to pass on faces no end of advice about what to do with it. The children expect an inheritance. Charities need your money, or good causes will suffer. This Labour government wants to take from the old and give to the young. It is a way of thinking that belongs to an age that is going fast. People are now living longer, healthier lives. Why shouldn't they spend whatever money they have on themselves? Blow the lot, and to heck with other people's expectations. While not a view you will hear expressed openly, it is out there and attracting a growing band of believers. New industries are springing up to satisfy the desire for a different way of doing things. Take retirement homes. At the moment, most people over 50 go on the same path. The family home becomes too big and too dear, and so you downsize. You live in the new place, which is not ideal, as long as you can, helped by family and care services if you are lucky. When your care needs increase, it is off to sheltered housing, then a retirement home, And finally, a nursing home, paid for by the sale of your house. Watch the money drain away at an eye-watering rate. You could wait for governments to finally get their act together and reform social care, but you know that is not going to happen, because it would cost too much and the country is broke. So, what else can you do? At the start of the noughties, there was a trend inspired by the film The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, of pensioners moving abroad to make their money go further. Most only went as far as Europe rather than India, and many still dream of doing so today if programs such as A Place in the Sun are any guide. Brexit put paid to much of that, and when illness or bereavement strikes, people want to come home. But what if you could move somewhere in this country? A place that might not have the weather, but guarantees luxury surroundings, company whenever you want it, hot and cold running activities, and a quick access to a doctor whenever you wish. You may have seen the type of thing in The World's Most Luxurious Retirement Homes, a Channel 5 documentary still available on catch-up. Basically, although there was nothing basic about any of the places, they were fancy hotels that rented suites long-term. The prices, some cost $100,000 a year, ensured only the seriously rich could live there. As is capitalism's way, the idea has been taken up and scaled down to become a more achievable proposition. Options now include round-the-world cruises that you can stay on for years, or leave and rejoin as you fancy. If bricks and mortar are more your thing, luxury developments are opening around the UK, including Glasgow, to cater for the well-off and well. Each flat is fully furnished and ready to rent or buy. Some firms offer help with decluttering your old home before you sell, so you can make a fresh start in every sense. If that is still too rich, there is always banding together with friends to buy a place. More purchasing power equals a bigger, better, more accessible home, and you would never be lonely. Sharing a house is not for everyone, mind. But what about sharing a street? Living a few doors down from family or friends? Everybody remains independent, but near enough to keep an eye on each other. It is easy to find the faults in such ideas. No matter how much the model is adapted, it will still be beyond the means of many people. It is essentially trying to recreate what we used to have, communities and homes that generations would share. And what happens when you need nursing care? Providing that would soon eat into the profits of a luxury hotel. You might still end up in a nursing home, and you will have burned through the money that could have gone to help others. Perhaps that is the biggest obstacle standing in the way of blowing it all. It could be seen as selfish, uncaring, and irresponsible, especially to children who may never have enough to get on the housing ladder. Something has to give, however. With fertility rates falling, the number of older people increasing, and attitudes against immigration hardening, there will soon be fewer people around to take care of any of us. Becoming self-sufficient as much as you can, for as long as you can, will be the goal for most of us. But life should be about thriving, not just surviving. Like millions of others, I have been much struck by the way Sir Chris Hoy is dealing with a terminal cancer diagnosis and his wife Sarah's multiple sclerosis. If you did not see the interview with the Olympic champion last night, it is on iPlayer and BBC Sounds. One piece of advice in particular resonated: to take that thing you have always planned to do one day and do it today. Whatever our daily frustrations and concerns, We should never forget how lucky some of us are to reach old age at all. That article was by Alison Rowett.
From the Herald Scotland, Thursday the 7th of November, from the sports section. There is only one clear solution to Scottish football's pyro problem. Article written by Johnny McFarlane. As plumes of smoke wafted around, but not up and out of Hampden Park for the second time in 2 days, TV broadcasters and fans alike were left twiddling their thumbs. As the minutes ticked by, 5 in the case of Rangers v Motherwell and 15 for Celtic vs Aberdeen the day before, it might have crossed their minds that leaving the Premier Sports moneymen unhappy with their expensively acquired rights could finally provoke some action on the pyrotechnic hot potato nobody in Scottish football seems keen to deal with. Given we've not heard a peep since, that would have been fanciful. It is always unwise to count on movement where the SPFL are concerned, given their sole purpose seems to be to remain in a perpetual bland stasis, frozen in a collective paralysis by competing interests. Neil Doncaster, the CEO whose salary has now hit a remarkable £453,000 and doesn't even work from Scotland, is a leader whose only obvious skill is survival, negotiating his own jaw-dropping pay rises and mumbling bland corporate jargon. Ever trying to keep his profile low, he appears unwilling to proactively tackle major issues, even something as obviously dangerous to the cherished paying public as a pyro. As the ultra culture imported from Europe continues to grow, thanks to a combination of social media glamorisation and powder keg social conditions, there are now a few examples of horrible situations. 2 are obvious to highlight given their seriousness. In February at Easter Road, a Celtic fan was filmed as his hair was set alight by sparks from a pyro, the situation he was only just able to get under control before he was badly burned. 2 months later in April, Dundee fan Levy Rennie was hit in the temple by a lit flare thrown at McDermott Park. While it was traumatic and left a nasty burn, the 10-year-old was very fortunate not to lose his sight. While Dundee's players and manager treated little Levi to access hilarious trip to the training ground in the aftermath, he was still so badly affected he was reportedly no longer keen to attend away games after the ordeal. And no wonder when you read his mother's testimony, every parent's nightmare. We think it then went into his hoodie and he lifted his hoodie up and burned his cheek. He was hysterical, saying his face was burning. What has affected him most is the smell. He could smell himself burning. Setting off pyro in grounds is illegal for a reason. Regardless of what those in social media often assert, it's not safe. Proponents talk about cold pyro used elsewhere, but this is a position that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Yes, cold pyrotechnics are less dangerous, but even these burn at 500 degrees, and no sensible person suggests such products meet the high threshold for preserving safety in a football stadium, where fans are often packed cheek by jowl. Just over a year ago, the SPFL let it be known there would be a summit on the issue after a particularly intense display by Rangers fans at Dundee provoked outrage. Nothing has been heard since, despite many further similar instances by other clubs, continuing the SPFL's apparent turn-the-other-cheek approach. They continue to hope for the best, but when the inevitable tragedy happens, make no mistake, Doncaster and Co will have a case to answer for their lack of tangible action. There may be ideas and plans afoot behind the scenes, but it's been over a year, far too long to be brought to the public given the gravity of the threat posed. While maintaining the status quo and having a risk-free outlook to change painfully underserves our game, it's at least understandable or justifiable when it comes to commercial contracts, league structures and many of the facets of our game we debate passionately. The value of those are subjective, but where the safety of supporters is concerned, that's another matter. We know pyro is unsafe. We know it's illegal. Someone has to act. So what can be done? The perpetrators use masks to hide their identities. The only way of finding out who is wielding the flares or firing rockets is to wade in and make arrest. The police understandably balk at this and point out that such actions would only serve to cause further disorder and place their officers in harm's way. So the ball is volleyed back to the SPFL, who might point out pyro is illegal and therefore a police matter. Back it goes in a perpetual loop. The one place that pyro is guaranteed is Hampden during semi-finals and finals, We see it time and again. How can Glasgow City Council justify the granting of a safety certificate to the stadium, given the rampant criminality that's happening on Football's watch? It's a question our politicians should be asking. While they haven't acted collectively under the SPFL umbrella, the clubs have done some good work on this issue. Celtic, Rangers and Motherwell all have issues with pyro, but each has taken a sometimes unpopular stand against it. Managers, chairmen, club statements, you name it. The point they're unwanted has been made. Sadly, the selfish few don't give a monkeys what their club says. It must be infuriating and could be enough to leave them to conclude that this mess is unsolvable, except the solution is staring everyone in the face. UEFA recognise that pyro is extremely dangerous and must be dealt with. They have stepped up to tackle this head on with a series of measures to punish the clubs and fans who persist. Celtic received a final warning for flare antics in Dortmund in October. An edict stated that any further instances of pyro being used would lead to the complete lockout of away supporters at Celtic's next match. Predictably, the strict approach with tangible punishment worked. There was no pyro in Bergamo as fans self-policed, knowing there was something significant at stake. In the interest of public safety, the SPFL and the SFA should adopt the same measures to tackle this epidemic. There can be no doubt this method will work. Punishment should be on crowds rather than about penalising clubs with fines or points deductions. While the SPFL is traditionally resistant to any form of strict liability, surely using it in this form to wipe out danger would have some backers. There has to be a tangible plan for supporters if they refuse to heed warnings and listen to reason. After all, there are no second chances when tragedy hits. Scottish football's power brokers must act before it's too late. And that article was written by Johnny McFarlane.
These letters are from the Herald on Thursday the 7th of November 2024. They are to be found in the Voices section. The headline, "Cowardly Democrats only have themselves to blame for their defeat." The Democrats in the USA have suffered a catastrophic defeat to President-elect Trump and the Republicans, and will no doubt blame everybody else or somebody else for this defeat. However, they only have themselves to blame and will realise this very quickly if they have the courage to examine their own navels. Courage was non-existent in their failing to tell President Biden that he was simply unfit for a further term in office and allowed any semblance of a campaign to self-destruct in a short 5-minute period during the head-to-head presidential debate with Mr. Trump. Further, they lacked the courage to select their candidate in a contest and imposed Vice President Harris on the American electorate. It seems likely that they did this in an attempt to play the woman card specifically against Mr. Trump, failing to recognise that her term as Vice President was at best uninspiring and at worst incompetent. The disastrous Democratic campaign will have repercussions around the world and not least in the UK, where President Trump will not quickly forget how he has been described in the past by various senior members of this Labour government. The UK and Europe should brace themselves for some rough weather heading from the west. Richard Allison, Edinburgh. Never much of a choice. Oh my goodness, the Liberals on TV in the United States and here are going into meltdown with the prospect of Donald Trump returning to the White House. To me, it is the Democrats' own fault for putting up a lightweight politician who expressed few policies or visions and who appeared to think, maybe because of his previous deviant behaviour, that she could achieve her goal by just attacking Mr. Trump. America is the most capitalist country in the world, and the most important thing to the vast majority of its population, old and new, is, as was quoted in Bill Clinton's campaign, the economy, stupid. And Miss Harris has shared the blame with Joe Biden for making it worse in the past few years. It was never much of a choice for the American people, but let's just hope that the winner has learned from his previous time in office and brushes with the law, and that he has mellowed more than a bit. Fingers crossed. W. McIntyre, East Kilbride. Failure of liberal democracy. Is it any surprise that Donald Trump won? To a great extent, liberal democracy has failed electorates. It is now a vehicle for self-enrichment and serious nest-feathering by elected members. The institutions of state in the Western democracies have accommodated this greed on the tacit understanding that no serious attempt is made to alter the fundamental structures of power and privilege that exist in these countries. The continuance of the established state is paramount. No structural changes can or will be made that compromise or challenge the many inequalities and injustices in society. This self-serving by elected members has effectively disenfranchised the electorate. Minor adjustments to the operations and administration of national systems within a very narrow framework are now what passes for representative government. The expectations of voters are replaced by the personal interests of the elected members and the interests of the state they serve. Some time ago, you printed a letter from me in which I expressed the view that democracy itself is threatened and needs to be back in the hands of the people. I suggested that elected members should receive the median wage of the country and only serve 2 terms, thus attracting principled people to elected positions rather than the current carpetbaggers. Ensuring that the current gravy trains are derailed would go a long way to achieving this. Electorates in the West are seriously disillusioned by their political representatives and the systems they operate. It is little wonder that people in so-called democracies are lashing out at the political classes who only serve their own interests. Donald Trump has capitalised on this democratic deficit and the smug Washington elites for his own ends. But he also has little interest in the well-being of those who elected him, as I am sure they will find out. If the democratic process is not returned to electorates, but continues to be a cash cow for craven elected supporters of unreformable states and systems, then the outlook is grim. There are notable warnings from the past in this matter. Dawn Ferguson, Kirkintilloch.
The Herald on the 8th of November and the sports section. Celtic have earned European confidence no matter what lies ahead. By Joe Donnelly. It may well have been the best Celtic performance in Europe of the 21st century. Sure, the Parkhead side have claimed the scalps of much bigger opponents over the years, weaving far more spectacular David and Goliath fables into the tapestry of club folklore. Barcelona for one, Manchester United another, AC Milan, Lazio, Juventus. But in terms of complete performances, the manner in which Brendan Rodgers' men overcame RB Leipzig on Tuesday night has to be up there with the best. It was a fast, aggressive and relentless display, showcased on Europeans club's grandest stage on an evening where everything fell into place. Nicholas Kuhn extended his fine form with 2 stunning goals. Rio Hatate dazzled with every pass and his uncanny vision. Arne Engels looked every bit the club's record signing. And Callum McGregor put in one of his best, most industrious shifts in a green and white jersey to date. Moreover, with 2 home wins from 2 so far, 3 in a row if you count last season's matchday 6 triumph against Feyenoord Nord, Celtic Park has restored its long-absent swagger, deafening during the iconic operatic pre-match anthem and literally rocking when Kuhn hit the net twice ahead of half-time, before Hatate pounced on a goal-keeping error in the second period. Dare it be whispered, Parkhead might be a fortress once again. Of course, it could all come crashing down like the proverbial house of cards at the next asking. I liken the entertainment value of Brendan Rodgers' side in the opening stretch of the current campaign to Martin O'Neill's golden era, and then Borussia Dortmund took 7 off them in a night when dodging a cricket score genuinely felt like an achievement. Well-earned stalemate against Atlanta and Bergamo went some ways towards putting that horrid result in the rearview mirror. But this week's 3-1 triumph against a side currently commanding second place in the German Bundesliga, having conceded just 5 goals with the league's best defensive record, no less proved that the ship has been stabilised, no matter what seas lie ahead. To this end, Club Brugge mark the next visitors Glasgow's East End, followed by an away trip to Dynamo Zagreb. After that, young boys travel to Paradise towards the end of January, before an inevitably billed Battle of Britain showdown against Aston Villa comes into sharp focus. It would seem 3 more points from a possible 12 would all but guarantee Celtic place in the competition's playoff round, while a further 9 could see them finish in the top 8, in turn automatically qualifying for the tournament's last 16. The latter is, of course, the tallest of orders, even while buoyed by Tuesday night's heroics. But who'd have even considered the notion after 80 minutes at Signal Ender Park 5 and a bit weeks ago? Club Brugge's unlikely 1-0 win over the previously flawless Villa on Wednesday evening proved nothing can be taken for granted in the Champions League. But Celtic supporters have surely earned the right to be confident at this moment in time. Unbeaten domestically, top of the league, a handsome 15 goal difference, advantage over second place, through to a cup final this side of Christmas, and well within reach of tangible European progress. It could even be argued that the last point has already been achieved. For the avoidance of doubt, I'm far from a Pollyanna personality type. I err on the side of pessimism by default, and I've often wondered if there's a glass on the table at all, far less one that may be half empty or full. A child of the 90s, the decade-long scars inflicted by what felt the interminable success of Celtic's city neighbours have barely healed, to the point where I preposterously view the Parkhead side as underdogs going into every derby a quarter of a century on. But even I believe Celtic have earned the right to be confident in the here and now. While I expect naysayers slinging Woodward insults from opposition fans, I can't fathom not enjoying the present on this side of the fence. When else can we allow ourselves to be positive? Celtic's Champions League campaign may well take a nosedive from here, but that doesn't detract from 3 out of 4 top performances to this point, nor does it diminish the will of Celtic supporters who dare to dream. Celtic have clinched more prestigious one-off results in Europe this century, but I'm of the view beating RB Leipzig was as significant as Gordon Strachan's 3-0 win over Benfica during the 2006 and 7 campaign, an occasion where, against the odds, the home side triumphed with a display of fast and aggressive football against a top opponent. Indeed, Brendan Rodgers' side should now reach the Champions League play-off round. They might not finish in the top 8, they probably won't, but if they play anything like they did against Marco Rose's side, then they give themselves a fighting chance. In any event, as was heard booming from the stands of Celtic Park on Tuesday night, don't worry, be happy. That was by Joe Donnelly. The Herald on the 8th of November and the sports section. Rangers boss Clement singled out for special Europa League praise. And this is by Mark Walker. Olympiakos defender Panagiotis Restos praised Rangers boss Philippe Clement for doing his homework on them after the Ibrox side claimed a draw in the Europa League. Rangers pick up a good point against Europa Conference League winners in Athens after an equaliser from striker Cyril Dessers. The Greek international star Restos credited the way the Ibrox men set themselves up against them. He said, "It seems like Rangers have studied us closely because they were good at shutting down our attacking qualities, so credit to their coach for that. And I can understand that because of the performances we put in last season when we won the Europa Conference League. If I were them, I would have wanted us to be cautious too, but it wasn't the result we wanted. When we play here, we play to win, and we have done that consistently recently. We conceded a goal from individual errors that we shouldn't have conceded. They happen in football. We have to work on them. I'm not happy. We wanted the 3 points because it would have been a big advantage for us. And that was by Mark Walker. The Herald on the 8th of November and the sports section. Rangers make important behind-the-scenes appointment by David Irvin. An important behind-the-scenes appointment at Rangers has been confirmed on Company's House. Documents filled have revealed Graham Horseman has been appointed as secretary at the Ibrox club. Horseman had joined Rangers in January as Football Legal Counsel, but will now take over duties as secretary. Confirmation of the background office shuffle was published on Friday, November 8, after papers were filled to Company's House. The short public PDF file reveals the company confirms that the person named has consented to act as secretary, alongside details of the dates in the process. The second Company's House update on Friday confirmed James Taylor's departure as secretary. Taylor is chief financial officer at the club. The termination of Craig Robertson's role as director of Rangers was also confirmed on Friday morning. The former director of football operations quit his Ibrox post after just 18 months in the job. Rangers Review previously reported that the decision is Robertson's, with sources insisting it is not a case of the former head of business and education jumping before he is pushed. And that was by David Irvine.
From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 10th of November, from the news section, exclusive. Domestic abuse register could save lives of victims. An exclusive by Rebecca McCurdy. Legislation recording the details of domestic abuse convicts in a similar way to sex offenders could save lives, the MSP proposing the law change has said. Scottish Tory MSP Pam Gossel hopes her proposed domestic abuse prevention bill will be formally introduced to the Scottish Parliament by spring. If implemented, the register could act as a deterrent to would-be abusers and reoffenders while helping keep potential victims safe. It would work in a similar way to the sex offenders register, with home address and relationship statuses recorded by Police Scotland. Since 2018-19, Police Scotland has recorded over 60,000 incidents of domestic violence each year, with 61,934 in 2022-23. Campaigners like Fiona Druitt, the mother of Emily, who took her own life in 2016 after a campaign of abuse from a university boyfriend, have hailed the proposals as a potential deterrent. Ms Druitt told the Herald, "Too often perpetrators move on to new victims, and the register would provide much needed transparency. A register could also act as a deterrent, as perpetrators would know there could be a broader consequence for their actions. We know domestic abuse often happens behind closed doors, with perpetrators presenting themselves as good people to the outside world. While there is currently a domestic abuse disclosure scheme in Scotland, the onus is on the potential victim to request the details." Speaking to the Herald as she works to finalise the proposals, Ms Gossel said, "What people don't realise is, every life lost to domestic violence is somebody's life. It is somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, somebody's sister and cousin. When that life is gone, it's too late. We need to make sure we have more in place to protect people. If you do something wrong and you're convicted, you should be on that register, and if you're on the register, you're going to be monitored, and it is that perpetrator that has to come forward with that information, otherwise it's a criminal offence." The bill has also received cross-party support from more than 40 MSPs. In addition to the register, the proposals will also introduce mandatory rehabilitation measures for offenders and increase education around this subject. Ms Gossel said, "I think the bill will have a massive impact. It will keep people safe. The way to stop it happening in the future is to be proactive with education to help the future generations, and we need that rehabilitation, but in that middle ground we need that register. It is so key. This is what holds everything together. It's where I think, honestly, a lot of lives will be saved because the police authorities will know that a person is in a different relationship, and if they're convicted of domestic abuse, then the police will make sure they will know what's happening. And maybe that person won't know that their new partner is an ex-domestic abuser, but this would allow them to know. Mrs. Gotzel was also hoping the legislative proposals would raise awareness of domestic abuse in BAME, Black, Asian and minority ethnic, communities. It is the inspiration behind the bill, having watched her mother Balbia provide a safe haven to women in the community during the 1970s. She did not realise at the time that the women, often covered in blood or bruises, were domestic abuse victims. Police Scotland only records the gender of victims with religious and cultural factors not covered. I come from Indian heritage. Yes, I'm born in Glasgow, but I watched it in Argyll Street. My mum had a shop. People would come into her shop bleeding, crying. She would feed them around the gas fire. I'd be running in, seeing this, and I didn't know what it was until much later in my life, until those people she helped, their children and now grandchildren, are contacting me saying, "Have you any idea what your mum did at that time?" There were no organisations at that time, and if there were, people didn't trust them in those days. We're talking around over 40 years ago, so the local shop was very important. People would trust you. These are people from BAME backgrounds. Sometimes people from BAME backgrounds, in fact quite a lot of the time, people from BAME backgrounds think it's okay to hit your wife. It's been coming on for years and it's okay. We need to stop that. It's not okay. But how can we stop that if we don't know what's going on out there? If the data was there, we could see just how big the problem is, and we could help those people. And that article was an exclusive by Rebecca McCurdy. From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 10th of November, from the news section. How to Catch a Criminal with a Teaspoon of Soil by Sandra Dick. To the untrained eye, a smear of mud might seem to be of less consequence at a crime scene than a speck of blood, a strand of hair or fingerprints. But in recent years, soil forensic has become a remarkable weapon in helping detectives unpick important information, such as the case of Emma Caldwell, whose killer, Ian Packer, was convicted after soil found on his van was found to match the wood in which she was buried, the final piece in the jigsaw to seal a conviction. Pioneered in the UK by Professor Lorna Dawson at the James Hutton Institute, soil forensics is now moving into a new era. Not just able to link a suspected to a crime location, eventually soil may well even pinpoint when they were there. DNA technology and big data crunching is being worked on, which has the potential to trace within a brief window of time when somebody was in a particular location. Once added to what forensic soil scientists can already unravel from the tiniest spot of soil, such precious extra detail could be the smoking gun to seal convictions in future cases, and, crucially, cold cases which have lingered for years without a conclusion. Like a fingerprint, each teaspoon of soil has its own unique set of components. There are the inorganic minerals derived from the geology around it. The old gneiss rocks of the northwest will leave a different mark to the newer sandstone of the central belt. Drift material left behind from the last ice age will also affect its makeup. In addition is water, air and organic materials such as the plants and the chemicals left behind when they and other living things decompose. In the forensic soil laboratory, even small soil samples removed from a suspect's clothes, footwear, carpets and vehicles, indeed anywhere it might be found, are analysed using X-ray diffraction for the minerals, gas chromatography for the organics, and inductive coupled plasma mass spectrometry to uncover elemental concentrations such as magnesium, potassium and calcium. The scientists can also look for traces of pollen, fabric fibres, human and animal hair, fly ash from industry, and diatoms which can reveal if someone has walked through a watercourse. Because Scotland has an enormous soil archive dating back 90 years, and with samples collected across 10 kilometre grids, they can cross-check their sample with thousands of others to narrow their search to specific locations. It can tie soil from a victim or suspect to a particular location with up to 97% similarity. Because soils are continuous horizontally and vertically, we can't exactly say X marks the spot, explains Professor Dawson, but we can say that it's within 97% similarity, and, based on results, it's much more likely it's come from one place than another. What is really exciting is the potential to use soil DNA, the third component of soil. Alongside organic and inorganic material, there are the living things which exist within soil, such as bacteria, fungi, algae and nematodes. All leave behind their DNA, which once unpicked, has potential to identify not just the seasons of the year, but potentially down to a matter of weeks. We extract all that DNA and we have a huge amount of data, says Professor Dawson. If we understand it fully, the microbial data tells us whether someone has been there in the spring, summer, autumn or winter. That changes possibly on a week's basis, because the bacteria respond to very subtle shifts in temperature, moisture and predation. But, she adds, there are more organisms in a little teaspoonful of soil than there are people on the planet. We need to work with bioinformatics people who understand big data, and also with microbial scientists, so we can understand why certain organisms change and help answer, when did that person visit that site? We're not using it yet, but 10 years from now that will be a very powerful tool. And that was an article written by Sandra Dick. From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 10th of November, from the news section, 6 pedestrians killed in 9 days on Scotland's roads. Report by Craig Williams. 6 pedestrians have been killed on Scotland's roads in just 9 days. According to Police Scotland data, the 6 pedestrians were among 9 people killed in road traffic collisions since November the 1st. On Saturday, a 16-year-old boy died in Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, 4 days after being struck by a taxi on Main Street, Rutherglen. A 58-year-old man was arrested in connection with a road traffic offence and released pending further inquiries. Police also launched an appeal for witnesses after a pedestrian was killed in Coatbridge on Saturday. Around 5:20pm, officers were called to a report of a crash involving a black Vauxhall Corsa and a pedestrian on Brambling Road. Emergency services attended and the pedestrian, a 57-year-old woman, was taken to Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where she later died. Meanwhile, a 65-year-old woman suffered life-threatening injuries after a van struck the mobility scooter she was riding on Saturday. The crash happened in Cumberland Street in Glasgow at around 2:30pm. In 2023, 47 people died in pedestrian-related road collisions in Scotland, which was an increase from 34 in 2022. Transport Scotland road casualty statistics covering 2017 to 2020 showed that November and December were the peak month for adult pedestrian casualties, with each having 46% and 42% respectively more than the monthly average. Adult pedestrian casualties in the 4 winter months, November to February, were also 30% more than the monthly average. And that report was by Craig Williams.
From the Herald Scotland, Monday the 11th of November 2024, from the Voices section. Why Scotland must go for automatic voting registration. Article written by Ruth Maguire. The decisions made by our parliaments significantly impact the lives of all citizens, which is why, in a healthy democracy, voting should be easy and accessible for everyone. As people cast their votes in the Westminster general election on July the 4th, hundreds of thousands of people in Scotland were effectively barred from having their say simply because they were not registered to vote. According to the most recent statistics, Scotland's electoral registers were only 81% complete for local elections and 83% for parliamentary elections. Whilst this number might still seem high on paper, according to the Electoral Commission, it equates to between 658,000 and 1,033,000 people missing from or inaccurately registered in local election registers. Scotland is not alone in this, as according to the Electoral Commission, upwards of 8 million people across the UK are missing from the electoral register. The Commission's research also shows that certain groups of people are more likely to be unregistered than others. For example, many of those missing millions are voters who don't own their own homes. Only 45% of Scottish renters are registered, much lower than the British average of 65%. Having millions of people missing from the electoral rolls and unable to vote continually exposes the flaws in our democracy. Rather than addressing this issue, recent UK government measures introducing voter ID requirements have only added further barriers. By excluding millions from the electoral process, we weaken our democracy and place yet more obstacles before disenfranchised voters. This, combined with the issues experienced by many this year in accessing their postal vote in Scotland, paints a worrying picture. In a healthy democracy, voting should become easier and more accessible, not more difficult. This is why Holyrood needs to seriously consider implementing automatic voter registration, AVR, in Scotland, a move which would enfranchise those hundreds of thousands of missing voters at a stroke. AVR means that instead of people having to apply to register to vote themselves, public authorities will register them automatically. Local authorities and government bodies, such as the Passport Office, hold sufficient information to complete these registers for voters. We wouldn't be the first to introduce something like this either. The Welsh Synod passed legislation earlier this year to introduce trials of AVR, and Sweden has done so for many years. It takes one more thing off the to-do list for voters, while enfranchising those missing from the electoral rolls. The case for AVR becomes even more compelling given public support for the move. According to YouGov, 81% of people in the UK strongly or somewhat support AVR. Having hundreds of thousands of people not registered to vote in Scotland is an issue that should concern us all. This year's general election had the second lowest turnout in modern political history. That is worrying, as participation is the lifeblood of our democracy, and fewer people voting weakens it. That is why we need to take action to repair and strengthen our democracy by ensuring that come polling day, every citizen has the opportunity to cast their vote. Ruth Maguire is MSP for Cunningham South constituency and Deputy Convener of the Scottish Parliament's Standards, Procedures and Public Appointments Committee. And this article was read to you by Elizabeth.
From Herald Scotland, Monday 11th of November 2024. From the STEM section of the business section. Scottish tech boss hits out at so-called party of business. This article is an exclusive by Scott Wright. The technology industry veteran who recently resigned from a high-profile role advising the Scottish Government has hit out at the Conservatives, the once so-called party of business, as he declared the right-wing criticism he received while in post had been unwarranted. Mark Logan, a highly respected figure on the Scottish tech and start-up scene, is standing down as Chief Entrepreneurial Advisor today after 4 years working for the government. Part of the team which built Edinburgh-based Skyscanner into a tech unicorn, Mr. Logan was appointed by Kate Forbes, now Deputy Minister and Cabinet Secretary for the Economy, to review Scotland's technology ecosystem in 2020. He went on to implement a range of projects for ministers which are credited with boosting the Scottish tech scene, including TechScaler, the startup incubation and learning network, which now has around 900 registered members. However, Mr. Logan announced he was stepping down as Chief Entrepreneurial Advisor to the Scottish Government last month, citing the draining effects of attacks from right-wing politicians and some media outlets. Much of the media attention focused on his remuneration and whether it was value for money to Scottish taxpayers. Last month, the Scottish Government revealed, following a Freedom of Information request, that Mr. Logan was paid a total of £263,863.44 for his work between July 2022 and July 2024. That came after Mr. Logan defended his pay before the Scottish Parliament's Economy and Fair Work Committee in January, amid claims by Conservative MSP Graham Simpson that his earnings were colossal. Asked by the Herald if he felt the criticism he received had been unwarranted, Mr. Logan said, "Yes, in short. The way I thought about this situation is that it should be considered by all parties a good thing if you have senior business figures working very closely with the government of the day, whichever government that is, to advance economic and industrial policy. From out the gates, it should be considered a goodness for the country. And I think that, actually, part of the issue that brought attention to me was that essentially I was the only person doing that. It made my role a curiosity, and in the febrile politics that we have operating today, including Scotland, a curiosity is something which can be attacked. It was a disappointment for me that the work I was doing, which I think was very impactful and valuable to the country, and was certainly considered so by those in the industry, didn't attract any interest from the Conservative Party at all, the once so-called party of business. Instead, I was considered to be a target that, in undermining, could perhaps undermine the government by proxy. I think that we really nowadays especially need better from our politicians. I was disappointed in that focus." Mr. Logan added, "The role as defined probably needs to be revised in one way or another. I found myself in a difficult position where I was becoming increasingly a target of these attacks, never on the substance of what I was proposing to implement, always just on the fact of my existence. And as an advisor to government who scrupulously avoided any political position, because I think that is what someone in that role should do, it meant that I didn't have a voice to counter any of that. This was a frustration." Asked why he reached a decision to leave at this juncture, Mr. Logan said, "The answer to that is that I was coming up to the potential renewal of my contract, and I did not know for sure if that was going to happen or what process we would go through. But it caught the attention of the Conservatives and certain publications, and it was clear to me that was going to become a situation where more and more of these attacks and these stories were going to appear over the next few months. You start to ask yourself, is this something that I need to endure, or is it time to think about doing something else?" The other consideration is that I have been doing this role now for 4.5 years, since I started writing this STER, Scottish Technology Ecosystem Review, report. The combination of both of these things made me think it was time to move to other things. Asked to comment on the progress made within Scotland's startup ecosystem during his tenure, Mr. Logan said there has been a sea change in sentiment. Whereas before the STER report there were few conversations in government about the startup sector and the need for Scotland to become a technology startup nation that was at least the peer of countries like Finland, Sweden, Estonia and Lithuania, understanding of the tech sector and the value of entrepreneurship are now actively part of policy discussion across political parties. He said this was partly brought about by the stimulus of the government having a chief entrepreneurial advisor. Mr. Logan also noted there was a lot more confidence and optimism around. "I think we're actually seeing more startups being created than previously," he said. "So I think thematically there has been a significant change." He also pointed to a long list of projects that have got off the ground over the course of his tenure. He highlights the impact made by initiatives such as TechScaler, which has 900 firms registered in its network, around 2/3 of which, Mr. Logan, are early stage and a third scaling companies, the Ecosystem Fund and the Northern Scale-Up Fund. He also authored the Pathways Review to address gender imbalance in entrepreneurship, which has led to initiatives such as the Pathways Fund. There's a lot that's happened that's visible to people, he said. And there is a lot that has happened below the surface that has helped just galvanise the sector. He added, I think there's a body of work there that everybody in industry and close to the industry appreciates has made a difference to Scotland. I would have loved to have done more. I would love to have gone faster. All the things that people in my position will always feel and should feel. But we are very far away from a couple of reports on a shelf that no one read, and no one did anything with. We are not in that territory at all. And that article was an exclusive by Scott Wright. From Herald Scotland, Monday 11th of November 2024. From the STEM section of the business section. Scottish tech sector hailed as East Kilbride travel firm bought by Canadian player. Article by Scott Wright. The vibrancy of Scotland's technology ecosystem has been hailed after an East Kilbride-based company which provides software solutions to the travel industry was acquired. Travel Tech, which has been serving the travel industry for more than 25 years, has been taken over by Canada's Juniper Group, part of Vila Software and Constellation Software, for an undisclosed sum. The deal paved the way for YFM Equity Partners, which has been an investor in Travel Tech since 2016, to exit its stake in the company. YFM, which took part in 3 investment rounds in the Scottish firm in 2016, 2018 and 2019, noted that Travel Tech's revenue had tripled since it first became involved. It declared that its investment in Travel Tech had facilitated its expansion across 5 key global regions, including North America, Australasia and Latin America, and supported the re-architecting of its core products and development of an expanded product suite. Mal Barrett, Chief Executive of Travel Tech, said, YFM's investment accelerated the growth of Travel Tech to command a market-leading position. It's important to acknowledge the tremendous support from YFM, especially through the challenging trading period of COVID. Travel Tech benefited from wider initiatives and experience from both the team and other portfolio customers at YFM. Becoming part of Juniper Group and the wider Vila Software and Constellation Software family represents an exciting new chapter for Travel Tech. Our customers will benefit from expanded resources and products, while our team will have new growth opportunities within this thriving software network. Jonathan Marlowe, Portfolio Director at YFM Equity Partners, said, Travel Tech's success is a testament to Scotland's vibrant tech ecosystem, and we are proud to have been a part of the company's journey, supporting a first-class management team led by CEO Mal Barrett. This achievement reinforces our commitment to investing in dynamic Scottish businesses. We are confident that under Juniper Group's guidance, Travel Tech will continue its impressive trajectory, leveraging global resources to enhance its offering. YFM has exited Travel Tech alongside its co-investor Fullbrook Thorpe Investments, which had worked alongside the investor on the development of the Travel Tech business. And that article was written by Scott Wright.
The Herald on the 12th of November and the news section. Ex-Rangers ace Alfredo Morelos breaks silence on car crash by Ewan Payton. Alfredo Morelos has broken his silence in the media following his return to football after an alleged drunk driving crash last month. The former Rangers player was involved in a serious collision in Colombia around 2 weeks ago. His car crashed into a motorcyclist as he headed to Atletico national training. The 28-year-old striker was subsequently arrested on suspicion of driving while under the influence. This placed Morales' future in football in doubt. However, last night he was restored to Atletico's starting 11 as they drew 1-1 with City rivals Independiente Medellin. It was the second appearance back in Efrain Jure's side, having come on as substitute in last week's game against Deportivo Pereira. Jure's, formerly of Celtic, is the team's head coach. Speaking to local media post-match last night, Morales said, "As a human being, everyone makes mistakes. I feel very calm, very grateful to him, Jurez, to my teammates, to the board, to the owners who gave me the opportunity again." Morales is currently on loan at Atlético Nacional from Brazilian giants Santos. Atlético took a disciplinary action against the forward following his alleged driving offence. However, they opted against terminating his loan deal and instead drafted him back into the team when the manager deemed it the right time. That was by Ewan Payton. The Herald on the 12th of November and the news section. The battle to succeed John Swinney has begun, by Kathleen Nutt. Stephen Flynn's announcement he's seeking to stand as candidate for Holyrood in 2026 was a long time coming, but not at all unexpected. Since Nicola Sturgeon exited as SNP leader and First Minister earlier last year, there has been almost continual talk around the Aberdeen South MP's leadership ambitions. And while he's ruled out going for the top job at specific times, such as when Hamza Yousaf resigned this spring, he's always made clear that he will stand for the post when the opportunity comes and the time is right. In April this year, he spelt out his thinking that he would need to be in Holyrood to make his case for becoming SNP leader and First Minister, as he said he would not be putting his hat into the ring to succeed Mr Yousaf then. I've been asked this question previously, the last time there was a leadership contest in the Scottish National Party when Ms Sturgeon resigned, and it was very clear in my view that I believe that the party leaders should have the ability to be the First Minister of Scotland, he told BBC Radio 4's The Today programme. Implicit in my answer is the fact that I believe that the party leaders should have the ability to be First Minister of Scotland. As you and all your listeners know, I'm a Member of Parliament in Westminster. I don't have the ability to be First Minister of Scotland, so I'm sure people can read between the lines in that regard. The implication is abundantly clear. By standing for Holyrood in 2026, Mr Flynn, should he be selected and elected, will be putting himself in a position where he can become SNP leader and First Minister. The latter post only, of course, if the SNP win the election and are able to form the next government. However, there could be a couple of major hurdles in the way to thwart Mr Flynn's rise, which could, if the current First Minister John Swinney has his way, be a long time in the making. Mr Swinney said when he stood to be party leader this year that he would serve a full term as FM if re-elected in 2026. If he sticks to this timetable, that could mean no leadership race until 2032. Mr Swinney's remarks then took some in the party by surprise, including allies of former leadership candidate Kate Forbes. Ms Forbes said still has her own leadership ambitions, setting them aside this spring in the interest of party unity to accept Mr Swinney's offer to become Deputy First Minister. But 2032 seems a long way off before an unofficial race is declared and will inevitably mean speculation over the next 8 years over who will succeed Mr Swinney. Of course, should the SNP not win the 2026 election, it is likely that Mr Swinney would resign as SNP leader then, and an earlier Flynn/Forbes leadership race would take place. Whatever the timetable of the official race, be it 2026, 2032, or sometime in between, today's announcement by Mr Flynn marks the beginning of a new succession battle within the SNP. And that was by Kathleen Nutt.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday, the 12th of November 2024, from the business section. Airline giant launches advanced aircraft at Scottish airport. This article is by Brian Donnelly. An airline and holiday company has hailed the launch of a new aircraft. The new Airbus A321neo aircraft, being operated by Jet2, is described as one of the most advanced aircraft available on the market. With a capacity of 232 passengers, the new Airbus A321neo aircraft is over 20% more fuel efficient than older aircraft and has a lower noise footprint of 50%. This enables Jet2 and Jet2 Holidays to grow more sustainably in line with the demand for award-winning flights and holidays, it said. The introduction of more fuel-efficient aircraft at their airports is just part of Jet2 and Jet2 Holidays' journey to net zero by 2050, in line with government targets. Steve Heapy, CEO at Jet2 and Jet2 Holidays, said, "The addition of this new aircraft at Edinburgh Airport plays a huge role in supporting our continued growth while providing customers with more choice, comfort and quality than ever before. As well as enabling us to continue delivering our VIP customer service, the introduction of the Airbus A321neo not only helps us to reduce fuel emissions per passenger, but also our noise footprint." He added, "We are delighted to now have our new Airbus A321neo aircraft based at 3 airports and have further plans to welcome them at even more of our airports in the future. We look forward to welcoming customers in Scotland on the new aircraft and taking them on their well-deserved holidays." Gordon Dewar, Chief Executive of Edinburgh Airport, said, "The whole industry is aware of the need to play its part in the move to net zero, and an important part of this will be investing in a modern and efficient fleet, something we are seeing today as Jet2 introduces the first of its A321neo aircraft to operations at Edinburgh Airport. This is one of the most advanced aircrafts available on the market, and we are thrilled to see it operating out of the capital. It demonstrates the ability to add sustainable growth while maintaining a wide variety of destinations for passengers who are looking forward to a well-earned holiday." Jet2 plc has a firm delivery stream of 146 new Airbus A321neo aircraft through to 2035, and the move at Edinburgh Airport marks the first such aircraft to come into operation from the airport. Including this aircraft, Jet2 now has 10 of the new aircraft in service across 3 UK airports, Edinburgh, Manchester and Birmingham. For summer 2026, the companies will also operate the new Airbus A321neo aircraft from London Stansted and Glasgow for the first time. That article was by Brian Donnelly. This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday, the 12th of November 2024, from the business section. Scottish family-run dairy wins listing with retail giant. This article is by Brian Donnelly. A Scottish family-run dairy has hailed a major listing win for its products. Graham's Family Dairy said it has secured a multinational listing with a global retail giant. The deal will see the Stirlingshire-based firm's Strawberry Protein 25 pouches rolled out in multi-pack form across Costco's UK stores, as well as its Iceland and Swedish locations. It will be the first time Graham's Protein 25 pouches will be available in multi-pack form, with the family dairy rolling out its strawberry flavour in 8-pouch boxes to meet the increasing demand of the bulk buying consumer. It said Costco is the world's third largest retailer behind Walmart and Amazon. There has been a huge surge in demand for the Scottish dairy's natural and high-protein products, which are now exported globally to the likes of the UAE and Ireland. The range overtook sales of conventional milk in major supermarkets last year, with protein product sales now equating to over 25% of the family business total sales. Robert Graham, Managing Director at Graham's Family Dairy, said, It's a proud moment for us all to see what began as a wee family dairy in Bridge of Allan now stocked across the country and even further afield in one of the world's most respected retailers. It's no surprise to see continued demand in our high-protein range. By balancing innovation with our traditional style, we've been able to create a natural high-protein product that gives people an easy, nutritious way to meet their protein needs. It's also been important for us to expand our pack offering, with the new multi-pack allowing Costco shoppers to buy their protein pouches in bulk. We are delighted that our Protein 25 range will help fuel Costco customers in the UK and Scandinavia. With the protein pouches in selected stores from the end of October onwards, it marks the latest of a string of successes for the Bridge of Allan business. It has recently released its accounts for the year ending March 2024, showing a £153.1 million turnover, with the independent dairy putting part of that success largely down to investment in new products, including the dairy's high-protein range, featuring Protein 25 pouches, yoghurt pots and drinks, dessert-style protein yoghurts, Skyr Icelandic-style yoghurts, and Scotland's first Greek yoghurt pouch, the latest innovation from the family business. The pouches will be available at all 29 of Costco's UK locations. Luke Ferguson, buyer at Costco, said, "We are delighted to step into the protein category with Graham's Family Dairy as our partners. We are confident the quality of the product and value to market will be well received by our members." The family-run business was founded in 1939 by Robert Graham in Bridge of Allan, Stirlingshire, where he reared 12 cows, milked them by hand, then made all the deliveries by horse and cart. That article was by Brian Donnelly.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at View and Review, and to tell your friends about our service.